So I finally broke down and I bought the Presto Precise Digital canner, which I've got right here. You might be able to tell by looking at it that it's still in the box. It still has the plastic wrap around it, that this is exactly as it came when it was shipped to my home. I haven't done anything with it, and I got it about a week ago, and it's just sitting there in the box. Now, sometimes people leave it in the box because I've heard people say, I've bought it, 6 months ago, and I've been afraid to try it or whatever. But in my case, I've decided to leave it in the box because I'm not sure if I want to keep it or if I want to return it. And I just knew that it would be easier for me to return if I didn't unpack it and then have to repack it and all of that. So in this video, I want to talk with you about why I'm considering returning this canner without even trying it. I'm Rebecca from stockingmypantry.com. Okay, so I am not new to electric canners. Those of you who watch my videos at all know that I use the Nesco canner a lot. And in fact, I have 2 Nesco canners already, and I love them. I'm very happy with them. But I've seen a lot of buzz about this canner, and it has the Presto name on it. I mean, obviously Presto is well known in the canning circles. It's been around for a long time, and it just seemed like it would be a good thing for me to do. Now, before I go any further in this video, I want to say, if you have this canner and you love it, anything that I say in this video is not to take away from that. Although I would love to hear your thoughts on it, why you do love it, why you don't love it, or whatever. I'm also not trying to convince anyone not to get this canner. I'm just going to share my perspective on why I might return it without even opening it. Okay, so as I mentioned, I already have 2 Nesco canners, and I thought that getting this might be nice for a couple of reasons. One is it has a little bit larger capacity. Now, I've hesitated on this because this canner, the Presto, accommodates 5 quarts at a time, and the Nesco is 4. So that's not a huge difference, but still it's a difference. However, after I ordered this, I started reading the manual online, which I should have done before I ordered it, and I found out that the 5 quarts only applies with regular mouth quarts. If you have wide mouth quarts, then they are only 4 to a load, which is exactly what I get with my Nesco. So it doesn't have that much bigger capacity with quarts. It does have a little bigger capacity with pints. The Nesco or the Carry canner has 5 pints, wide mouth, and actually recommends wide mouth pints. And the Presto can accommodate 7 wide mouth pints. Okay, so that is a little bit bigger. But it's not that much more capacity when you just compare wide mouth to wide mouth. So to really get the full benefit of this canner, you need to use regular mouth, which I have hardly any regular mouth. And I just looked, and it's probably because it's canning season, but my local stores and even online ordering, I had very limited options with regular mouth jars. And on top of that, I kind of like, for the most part, having one type of jar, and then I buy those lids and that type of thing. So I kind of like having just wide mouth rather than having this random assortment of wide mouth and regular mouth, even though I do have that a little bit. For the most part, everything is wide mouth. So that was the first thing, is that it's not hugely beneficial from a capacity perspective. The next issue is cost. Now, obviously, cost varies because, things are on sale and people say, oh, I got mine for only $199 or whatever. But the retail cost is $2.99. I did get this for $2.55. But comparing that to the Nesco retails for $169.99, so $170 versus the $300 of the Presto. However, I've never spent anywhere close to the 170 for my Nesco. I have, as I said, 2 Nescos, and I typically have spent 110, 120 on that. So the bottom line is that you can easily get 2 Nesco or Carry canners for the price of 1 Presto. And if you're wanting the larger capacity, what my practice has been up to this point is I use just 1 Nesco if that's all I need, if I only need 4 quarts or 5 pints. If I'm making a bigger batch, then I use my second one, and I can do up to 8 quarts or 10 pints. And so considering from a cost perspective, it makes more sense to have 2 Nesco canners or 2 Carry canners rather than 1 Presto, because for about the same amount of money, you get more, you can can more at one time. Now, it is true that then that means you have 2 canners, but what I typically do is I have one of my Nescos that's stored away and one that's out. And then I just pull out the one that's stored away that's stuck in a closet. I just pull it out when I need to, when I'm going to have a bigger load. So anyway, but that brings me to the topic of footprint. Obviously, I haven't taken this out of the box yet, and so I can't show you a side-by-side comparison of the Nesco and the Presto, but I'm going to pop up an image of a video from Rose Red Homestead where she compares these different electric canners. She has the Presto, the Nesco, and the Instant Pot Max. And so there's 3 in a row. On the left is the Presto, next to it is the Nesco, and then next to that is the Instant Pot Max. And so from her photo, you can see the difference in size. And especially if you are living in a small area, you have limited counter space, going a little bit smaller with the Nesco, I think, is beneficial. Along with the size consideration is the weight. Now, obviously, all of these electric canners weigh a lot less than a stovetop canner, and I know that's why a lot of us use them. Maybe you're not as young as you used to be, or you just don't have a lot of upper body strength. Both of those things describe me. And so the lighter something is, the better for me. And so the Presto being larger is a little bit heavier to move around and manipulate than the Nesco. Not hugely, but that is something to consider. Okay, so another thing is that, again, as I was reading through the manual while I was waiting for this to arrive, I noticed that there's a lot more steps that you have to take with the Presto compared to the Nesco. Now, one thing that's positive about this is that it tells you right on the canner, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's very methodical, step by step by step. And so that's kind of nice, but it also means that there's more times when you have to push the next button, do the next thing, all of that, compared to the Nesco seems to have a lot fewer steps. And so once the Presto really gets going and the processing starts, then, that's great. You can just walk away and leave it. But while you're in the process of, prior to that, there's more times when you have to manually advance to the next step in the process. And part of the issue on this, and it's something that it seems like a lot of people take issue with, is that one of the steps with the Presto is the jar warming step. And the thing with it is not that it's bad to warm your jars, but that you have to do it. It's not an option to skip that step. And from what I have read, it takes 15-20 minutes for the jar warming cycle to happen. And so you're just kind of stuck. You can't just be like, oh, I just took my jars out of the dishwasher and they're warm already, and so I'm going to skip that. No, skipping that is not an option. With my Nesco, I do sometimes warm the jars in the canner. I just put some water in, plug it in, and do that. So I can warm my jars in the Nesco. I can also just run them through the dishwasher along with my other dishes and pull them out and they're hot, when it finishes running. What I often do is I just fill a sink full of really hot water, soapy water and stick my jars in there and wash them and just let them sit in the water until I'm ready to fill them. And the water's so hot, and then the jars are hot as a result of that. And so I don't necessarily have to do that. Another thing that I've done is when using my Nesco is just run really hot water from the tap, fill up my jars, and let them just sit with the hot water in them for a few minutes while I'm getting some things ready. So there's multiple ways to heat your jars if you want your jars to be heated. There's multiple ways to do that with the Nesco. You're not forced to use a specific function on the canner just because it won't let you skip it. So that's another downside of the Presto. Another thing I want to talk about is water bath canning. You can water bath can in both the Presto and the Nesco or Carry canners. Both, the manual for both of them say to only do pints or smaller, half pints, quarter pints. You can water bath those, and that you cannot water bath quarts in either one. However, within Nesco, if you want to use a water bath recipe in quarts, so say for example you're wanting to can quarts of peaches and they're too tall to water bath in the Nesco, you can use the low pressure setting. So there's an option on the Nesco to use low pressure instead of high pressure, and you can still not water bath quarts, but basically there's an alternative for water bathing quarts in the Nesco, and such an option it is not included in the Presto. That's not an option. Okay, so another thing with water bath is on the Presto, I was reading the manual, and to water bath can in the Presto, one thing that you have to do is you have to bring on your stovetop, bring to a boil at least 3 quarts of water. And so what you do is you put some water in this, and then you're pouring in 3 quarts or more of boiling water that you've heated up on your stovetop. So one reason why I love electric canners is because you don't have to use the stovetop. And you're not having to carry hot water and that type of thing. With the Nesco, you just put your water in. You might put in hot tap water as an example, but you don't have to put water in a pot on the stove, bring it to a boil, and pour the boiling water in. So that's something that you have to do with the Presto that you do not have to do with the Nesco. So like I said, I'm sure that this is a fine canner. Presto has a good reputation. If you have this canner and love it, great. I would never discourage people from buying it or put people down, but or criticize this canner, as being like, speaking out against it, like sometimes people do about this sort of thing. But I guess the bottom line is, for me, I personally don't see enough benefits in this over the Nesco, particularly considering the cost and being able to get 2 Nescos for the price of 1 Presto. I just question whether or not this is worth having. So I am still open to it. Thankfully, I bought this from Walmart, and they have a 90-day return policy, so I can return it within 90 days. And so I'm not in a huge hurry. I'm giving myself some time to think about it and figure out if that's what I want to do. And in the meantime, I'm just sticking it in a closet. And, I have it on my mind, so I won't forget about it. But the bottom line is I don't have to return it today. So if you have any thoughts on this, I would love to hear, what would you do? Based on either your experience with the Presto and or Nesco and Carry canners, and based off what I've shared with you, what would you do? Would you return it or would you keep it? And if so, why? So leave a comment to let me know your thoughts on this. I look forward to hearing from you. And by the way, if you like this video, I would really appreciate it if you would give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.